Well, I have been doing the 30s poets as of now, and there are certain things that when we are doing the poets of the 30s, that is the Orden group, it always comes to us that there are certain movements and certain isms within quotes that we need to learn about when we are doing the 1930s, the 1920s, and the 1900 in general. Because whenever we think about these poets or the writers of that age, there's one line that sticks out from history books, and that is the line about modernism. Modernism as a literary movement, and also a movement in general that had been there, and it and was developing new things in art, literature, culture, architecture, and a number of myriad other things. Now, when we think about the history books, that is the books of the history of literature, one year comes out as a very important kind of year, and it's sort of a favorite for the people who set objective questions. That is the year 1922, because 1922 was the year when two groundbreaking works of literature were published. One of them was obviously T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, and the other one was James Joyce's Ulysses. Now, these two are always thought about, and we actually will always think about them as the front runners or the pioneers of modernist movement in literature, though there are other concepts and other percepts which do that, because even before 1922, that is before the First World War, there was Wyndham Lewis's Blast magazine, a centerpiece or a mouthpiece for the Vorticist movement, and it was very famous with the black and pink cover and the Vorticist manifesto and all that. But more of that later. The point that comes to us right now is very simple. That is, as students of literature and lovers of literature in general, we cannot keep our eyes or our minds away from literary theory. It's simple, because as soon as you are studying literature, it is somehow sort of written in the books or something, or because you are compelled to do it. But there is always this thing that you must be a bit proficient in literary theory or cultural theory in general, or theory that's within quotes, which is known in literary circles or the literature studying circles, that is, and you have to know your thing around a number of isms, ISM, like modernism, postmodernism, postcolonialism, Dadaism, Vorticism. It's just to name a few, but there are numerous isms that go on and all that, and it's more or less like a soup of isms that you have to put your head in, and you can't simply understand what it's all about. Well, literary theory is always confusing, and however much we write books or do videos or give talks, or sort of break literary theory into its components, or somehow write books on theories and then write a key to the book on that theory, and then sort of connotation and annotation to that theory book. We can go on and on, but as new students of literature and students who have come from a different background, that is, who are quite new to the English literary heritage as of now, it's quite a bit of a daunting task. It's it's quite a hard thing to do. It's a very hard nut to crack, literary theory. Now, I am not going into modernism right now, because all kinds of isms have one very simple source, and that's literary theory, as you have understood by now. Thing is, the first thing that we have to learn is, why are we going to study literary theory? Is it going to give us a third eye, or is it going to sort of make us some sort of a superman or a superwoman in the literary world, because we can see everything, we can know everything, we can hear everything? Not like that. Because many of my students have complained that literary theory is very tough, and I am not going to tell them that it's very easy. It's not easy, because as students, when we were students, it was quite the tough thing to sort of understand or memorize, or sort of just bring myself to write an answer. That is, it's quite a daunting task, and it's quite a hard nut to crack. In this context, I would like to sort of go back to my graduate days, when we heard of a book written by Lois Tyson called Critical Theory Today. It's a very, very good book, very lucid, very simple to understand, and in very, very simple kind of language, which makes the study of theory really easy. And it's printed by Routledge. Its availability is quite good. In any good library of any good college, you will always find copies of Literary Theory, Critical Theory Today by Lois Tyson. And the first chapter that she had was, I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like this: everything you wanted to know about literary theory and were afraid to ask. My memory might not be that, sort of that kind of a photographic memory, but it was something like this: everything you wanted to know about literary theory or critical theory and were afraid to ask. Now, as new students of literature, you are always afraid of literary theory. And even the old students and the people who love literature in general, they are quite skeptical of literary theory. Why? Because the first reason is quite obvious. As I have said before, it's a hard nut to crack. The second thing is a bit personal. It concerns our perception and our impression of literature. It's more like dissecting or vivisecting a rose. We love roses in any of its avatar. That is, it might be black, it might be red, it might be pink, but as a flower, it's a very sort of symbolic, very beautiful, and a very lovable kind of thing, even as a symbol. The point is, you love literature, you study literature, and at certain points of your life, you remember certain magic words, certain magic phrases, certain lines from your favorite book, which are etched in your mind in golden letters. To most of us, not just most of us, to the majority of us, literature seems like magic. It's something to be happy about, to derive pleasure and entertainment, and it's something that actually brings out the best in our psyche, in our mind, and in our heart. So why should we, sort of cut out such a magical thing and lay it on a dissection table and point out the innards and label them? Some people think like this. That is, if we go into theory too much, literature itself will somehow lose the charm, lose the magic, lose the inspiration, and in the end, literature will be seen as some sort of a mechanized kind of thing, divided into components and cogwheels and tools that make up a body of magical proportions. That's true in some senses. But it's also true that even if we love something, our rationality and our powers of analysis should not be blinded. More than that, as students of literature, you must remember that in the end, and it's a very, very, very unromantic, pragmatic kind of end, you have to write an answer. You might love Keats, you might love Byron. Tears might come into your eyes when you think of John Keats, like these lines, like where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies. Or you might feel all romantic, all chocolate, and all lovey-dovey after reading something like The Last Ride Together by Robert Browning. But at the end of the day, some sort of rationality and some sort of analysis must be there to make us understand literature even better. That is why it is a bit necessary to know about the things that literary criticism entails and the things that literary criticism lays bare before us. It won't take away the charm of literature, but it will, at the end of the day, make you understand literature better. And somehow it will develop some sort of logical thinking and some sort of analytical reasoning which will make you better students. So the first thing that we have to get rid of is this resistance to theory. It's actually the name of an essay which was written by Paul Deman in 1960s about the resistance to theory. It was more about, sort of why should we study theory and all this. But in the end, we must remember that literary theory is here. So many isms are here and so many questions are here. To do it rightly, we have to study literary theory. And in that sense, it's time to delve deep into the isms and the culture and the history and the societal conflicts and the world and the incidents that actually shaped literature. Well, then, once again, welcome to literary theory. I will do a few more things, a few more talks on this later. In the meantime, studying is all that we have, and knowledge must prevail. That's all. Do study and do try to understand the world better. That's all literature can give you right now. Thank you.